smoke weed every day.
Welcome to the Higher Learning Channel. I am filling in for Kurt from Comic Book Rockstar Radio. Thank you so much, Kurt, for giving me the opportunity to take over your show right now while you're over there at the VMAs. Today I have with me my co-host Matthew Sire.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And we also have a very special guest, Billy Rohan, pro skateboarder.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And you can find all of us, my Twitter ID, preferably. You can find it on Ginzilla. And how can we find you, Matt?
I'm SIGHR_.
And how about you, Billy? What's the best way to find you?
You can find me at Instagram at William Rohan.
William Rohan. All right. So tell us a little bit about your background, Billy, because I definitely know you have an extensive thing with skateboarding from Illuminarly or some of the features you've had through Vice or New York. So if you could delve in a little bit more about that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I came from a small town in Gainesville, Florida. It's like a little college place, about 5 miles in any direction. It's pretty much cow country. I got into skateboarding, and it ended up kind of taking me around the world through sponsorships and things like that, and ended up here in New York City skating for New York back in 2003. And long story short, that was kind of skateboarding was my passion. That's what I loved to do. It was kind of like my kung fu or whatever. It was this fun thing to do with my friends. And yeah, now I'm here in New York and been here for about 14 years, met all sorts of wild people, and there's a lot going on here. It's a crazy city.
I definitely know you're full of a lot of those epic stories. So when it comes to whenever you worked with New York, I realized that it had a lot to do with Greg Chapman, and I know that it might open up to something that you are doing with Samurai right now.
Yeah, I started a company called Samurai a few years ago, and Chapman Skateboards is the manufacturer for Samurai, and essentially Theories of Atlantis is a distribution company that does all sorts of stuff with Polar and Magenta, Hops, Isle, all these great brands. And it's a big group of friends. And it was big for us at Samurai that they just put it up on their web store. So you could check out some of the Samurai gear we're working with those guys with at theoriesofatlantis.com. And there's all sorts of cool content up there and that sort of stuff. But Greg Chapman, he's one of those guys here in New York City that's been manufacturing boards for New York for the last, I want to say, 20 years or so.
Yeah, that's totally awesome.
Is the Illuminarly stuff, is that just you? Is that just something you put together, or is multiple people filming, putting it together? Is that?
Well, with the Illuminarly stuff, Josh Stewart, I had given him a couple little clips a while back when we first did the first Illuminarly. And he liked it, and he said, hey, if you could produce these for me, I'll run them on Theories of Atlantis. I like the idea, the concept behind it, kind of poking fun at the whole Illuminati thing, through skateboarding and comedy. And so, yeah, just basically got an old TRV 900 camera and would walk around the city when we were skating or whatever, just had the backpack with me with the camera, pull it out, film stuff that I'd see in the city. And I really liked the old style camera because you could get this zoom on it that you just can't get on a digital. And you'd end up catching people doing stuff from 2 blocks away where New York City, you could be walking around and be like, damn, this is Crackhead Time Machine. What the hell is this? You never really know what you're going to see here. And just being out there with some sort of camera to get it, edit it up, put it to some raw Stamon radio, and you're good. That was the Illuminarly stuff that we were doing.
And how can we find that?
If you want to see in the Illuminarly clips, you could just follow the Theories of Atlantis on YouTube. That's what they're all there. There's 7 Illuminarly clips up right now, and we have a couple more full-length ones coming out in the next couple weeks.
Oh, hell yeah. So that's what you got going on right now. On top of that, it seems I noticed that there's something popped up about 100 Gates project. So what's up with 100 Gates?
Well, the 100 Gates project, essentially I started dating this girl that was an artist. And last winter, I got into painting and doing some art myself because it was just so depressing. New York City, the winter here was just the worst of all time.
Yeah, and last winter was really brutal too.
Oh my God, you just Jesus, it's
oppressive.
Hard. Yeah, it was just too much. And so I started painting a little bit, and then when I met this girl, I was like, man, we should do some stuff. Why don't we paint a gate? Why don't we do something? And our friend Harif Guzman, that's a pretty well-known artist, he did a roll gate right in our little neighborhood. We live in the Lower East Side over off Clinton Street, Clinton and Henry area. So we call it the Bermuda Triangle. These guys, yeah,
Nice.
that's like you get stuck down there. It's like this area of Chinatown. We always joke that like when it gets gentrified, people will call it China White. It'll be like the new Williamsburg, kind of. We'll see. But right now it's still more affordable than Brooklyn, so that's cool. You get to take the no train home. But basically, this guys from this store called Homie's Wonderland had Harif paint their roll gate, and it's right next to Frank's Chop Shop. And we saw it, we're like, man, it just made the whole area look so much better. And then we walked up to the neighbors that were next to that store, and we're like, hey, you know, it'd be awesome if we could paint your roll gate. And the guy was like, yeah, sure. You know, I'd much rather have that than just like regular like tags that you see on the roll gates and that sort of stuff. So he gave us a couple $100 to pay for the paint, and we painted the first little, you know, little Barry Lohan thing on there with Jessica Blowers and myself. And it was just a fun thing to like go out there, and like I'm not like a graffiti guy, you know, like I never like had been up in that world, but I know so many guys that do paint, and it's all through skateboarding and those connections, because it's kind of one and the same. Like what I get out of skateboarding, some dude might get out of art. And I realized when I started painting myself that it's very similar. Like at first you can't do a kickflip. You try it and you try it and you try it. Then all of a sudden you land it and you realize like you could do it. Same with art. At first it looks like crap, or to you it looks like crap. And then you keep trying a little, and all of a sudden it looks like a portrait of somebody. And it has that same sort of thing inside of like accomplishment.
Yeah,
you know?
I totally fuck with that a lot, because like one of the best things that I really liked about like the mid 90s and on was like the beginning of the do-it-yourself art movement that was going on in New York, and how like the lines between art, graffiti, and skateboarding was all like blurring, and everybody was kind of mingling together. And I noticed like some of my most favorite artists came out of that. So like when I noticed that you were doing this project, I got really super excited and almost a bit jealous of you on this. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool.
Nah, thanks. It was just one of those things where it hit, and like as soon as we did that first one, we approached Stanley's Pharmacy, and like I knew Jess was like a classical painter, Jess Blowers, and she's an amazing oil painter, but she hadn't really worked much with spray paint cans.
Yeah.
And so I asked her to do a little sketch up of like what she would do for Stanley's Pharmacy if he wanted it. This is over on Hester Street in Ludlow.
Yeah.
And he was so psyched on the idea that, you know, he was down to pay money to get the paint and everything like that. So we got to it. She painted this first mural, and a lot of people in the graph world or the, you know, art world were like, wow, this girl is like super talented. And so I kind of felt like it was something that I could do to help her kind of get her work out there and let people know. She just moved here from Los Angeles, and I thought it would be a cool thing. So I started approaching different businesses and being like, hey, would you like to get your roll gate painted? If you paid some money for the paint and a little bit for the artist, she could do it. She would do a sketch. And we ended up painting about 11 gates together down in the Lower East Side. And what ended up happening from that was we approached the Lower East Side Business Improvement District Development Company or whatever, LES bid, and said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we got 100 artists together to do 100 gates between Houston and Canal and Essex and Allen, essentially 25 gates on each street. And it would be like a tourist attraction almost. Like people could come down there, get photos in front of the gates, walk the area at night, go from bars to bars and restaurants, and the businesses that are closed, you could see it. And that was kind of like the pitch, and they were psyched on it. So now we're working to make that happen.
Nice. How many? So wait. So there's still only the first few?
Yeah, I mean, for the 100 Gates project, I'd say we've done about 11 gates total, and we want to get we have about 58 artists that have committed to it, and we get more artists every day. But I'd like, Ginzilla is an ill artist. I mean, there's just so many of them that like we want to have the space for them, and I think it's the kind of thing where I'd like to see the artists be able to definitely get their paint costs covered and even have the artist paid, because it's artwork. Like doing a few myself, I realized like this is hard work, and I don't want to ask somebody, hey man, you want to be part of this project? Like it's cool, it's like a free come up, it's good for your art. Like I know all that stuff, but if I could get like funding for it and be able to pay somebody to do the piece, it's like That's a lot of work.
At
Yeah.
least to compensate for the cost of the paint. 'Cause
Yeah.
that definitely adds up for sure. Because I feel like my butt gets raped after I get them buying art supplies.
Oh yeah, it's like a drug. Like art is more expensive than cocaine if you're hooked on it.
For sure.
I mean, that's for real. And it's like we had different people already reach out to us from a little bit of the publicity from the 100 Gates project. So like Benjamin Moore is somebody that reached out directly and said, hey, we'd be, interested in covering the cost for the paint. But when you start to like break it down, it's like, well, if you have 100 gates and an average gate takes about 30 cans of spray paint at $10 each, that's $300. That ends up being $30,000 worth of paint that you're ready to commit on it, But that's one of the biggest costs is the paint. So
yeah, but it's a great thing that you started up, especially something that just came out of love, like something for you to like just came out of love, and now it just like turned into such a beautiful project that involves like so many people around you.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I just feel like there's just certain things that people don't realize, that there's always two ways to solve a problem. Like you could either totally outlaw graffiti and say, hey, there's no way you can do this anywhere, and we're going to arrest you, and we're going to arrest everybody that does it, and anybody. The difference between graffiti and art is graffiti is something that people don't ask permission to do. When a graffiti artist asks permission from a business owner to paint something, they're just an artist.
Yeah, street artist.
Or whatever you want to call it. But I feel like my mom and my two sisters being artists, it's like these words denigrate the work. Like an artist is an artist, whether you're a poet, whether you're a musician, whether you're a painter. And like describing someone like, oh, this is my friend, he's a graffiti artist. It's like, that's just, it kind of almost takes away from it, because it's like, no, this dude's an artist, like just straight up across the board. Like if Da Vinci was alive today, he'd be using Crink markers and spray paint cans, because no artists in history like to clean their brushes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, to me, like, I'm definitely right on that fine line where it's like, there's a part of me that just really likes the rebelliousness of like doing graffiti, but at the same time, like, I really don't like the fact that New York charges so much for graffiti fines. I think last time I checked was like something like $90K.
Oh, you go to jail.
Just something really ridiculous fine for like being caught vandalizing. I was like,
yeah,
what the fuck? Like,
you get clipped
you
for
go to
posting a
jail.
sticker.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, it's cool, man. I'd rather get a proof for that shit. Like, I don't want to get locked up. I don't like prison.
Yeah.
I like the dick. I don't want to be like with a bunch of like vaginas for like years. It's cool. I'm out on that. I'm out.
Yeah, it's a strange one, because like all of a sudden you're 30-something years old. You don't want to get arrested for like writing on something with a marker.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah, too old for that shit.
But that's what I'm saying. Part of the solution is that, like, okay, if you don't want kids skateboarding all over the city, you build amazing skate parks, and then they have a place to go. Like Europe, they see it as like, okay, the skate park is the teenager park. Whether you skateboard or not, they let kids go down there in Switzerland and Geneva and in Annecy in France, and they let them paint at the skate parks. They let the kids do graffiti, paint all over it, whatever you want to call it. And that helps it become a thing where, like, even here, the whole 5 boroughs, they don't have anywhere where you're just allowed to go and paint with a spray paint can. So what does that mean? The kids are going to do it everywhere they're not supposed to do it. If the city was like, all right, hey, in this park, we're going to put a train here. One train car, we're just going to put it up. Anybody can paint on it anytime they want.
Oh, that's going to start a war.
But now with Instagram and all these things, it's like once you have the photo of it, that lives forever.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
Like, why not make the Lower East Side skate park into the new little 5 Points?
Which actually, I also wanted to bring that up. Like, didn't you work on a project for opening up a skate park for younger kids? If I'm not mistaken, did I read that somewhere, or am I just like imagining that shit?
No, I mean a few years ago. I brought this idea to not the skate park, but I brought this idea to the school board at 12th and A. That's the nickname of the place, but it was public school number 60, and we would go over there. A bunch of different kids that was our crew, like the dudes from quartersnacks.com. We'd go and skate Tompkins Square Park all the time. But as the neighborhood started to change and it started to become like gentrified and more people moving in, there would be like softball leagues from the people from the district the DA's office, and they'd have permits, so they'd kick us out of the Tompkins where we always would skateboard. And that was like iced coffee place. You get the iced coffee, you skate with your friends, you just hang out. So when we'd have to leave there, we'd go between First Avenue and 12th Street to 12th and A. That became like the nickname for the park. And basically what it was a nicely smooth paved basketball court and a garden right on the side of a school. But nobody really used this park. Like, it was always empty. And when the school was out, all the kids would leave. So we'd jump the fence and skate it, and it became a skate spot. And then eventually we like pitched it to the school through a nonprofit called Open Road of New York at the time to do skateboarding physical education classes there. And we did that for, I want to say about 4 years with that school.
Sick.
Yeah, it was cool because it was like a trade-off. Like, the school gave me credits to go to NYU to get a degree for teaching. That's what I was working on. And my trade-off was to teach at the school. So it was like kind of a trade. They'd give you credits and you taught at the school for this elective. And it worked out cool. It was like me and this dude, Corey, and this guy, Sean Nguyen, all worked on it together. And it was a cool experience. But for me, when you're the lifeguard, you don't want to swim in the pool. And so
fuck no.
After working there for like 5 years or 4 years, I had to just kind of step away and be like, this is taking my love of skating away because I'm here every day telling kids
It feels like more like work than a passion.
Yeah, you become the lifeguard. You're like, yo, don't smoke weed behind there. Yo, pick up your trash. Hey, you can't drink in here.
Become the lame guy.
Yeah, you become the dude with the whistle. Like I was turning into groundskeeper Willie.
The weird old man. Just like,
you're like,
off, dude.
Hey, stop
Billy.
fighting. What's that?
Groundskeeper Billy.
Yeah,
And that's
basically.
so not your MO at all. Because, like, if anything, like, one of the things that drew me to you, like, in friendship was the fact that, like, I just thought you were, like, such a balls-to-the-wall type of dude. And, like, some of the crazy shit that you've pulled before, like, I don't know if I'm supposed to even mention it, but, like, that little heist that you made at that advertisement company.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. Like, that was one of, you know,
please share about that story, because I think that's just still amazing. Like, I think you should be on a Hall of Fame for that.
That's funny. No, I mean, look, you know, I'm not perfect. I've lived like a crazy life, and I've had, you know, I'd say my life has been 75% awesome and 25% hell on earth. You know, so it's like, that definitely have some things in my past that I'm not proud of. You know, one of them, I used to work at an advertising agency called Kirschenbaum, Senegal and Partners.
Oh man, you calling him out?
Nah, it was good. It was like, it was a great job. I loved working for him, and it was just kind of my bad. Like, you know.
What did you do?
I got my friend Taji a job there, and that was my first mistake. But it wasn't really a mistake. It was a great thing. But it like let us kind of start to realize all the assets that this company had that we could use. And we had just started Samurai at the time. And like, that was one of the things I was interested in, was working in advertising and being part of that world. And like, I don't know how we got the job, but we both got a job there, and we started out as interns, and then I became a client services guy. And like, while I was doing these pitches and these different things for clients, like, we started to realize like, oh man, downstairs they have like this creative area, and we can, you know, make stickers and do whatever we want. So we started to go down there on like any time we had time off, and we're making like hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of like promotional material for our company, Samurai. Yeah, it was like, and we started to like have kids put it up all over the city, all these big wheat paste, like this huge campaign. So it had this feel of like, man, this must be like a huge company, like big backing. These guys are like killing it. But really, it was just me and Taji like down in the bottom of the advertising agency, like cranking out stuff. And, you know, these guys had huge clients. You're talking about like Goldman Sachs and like all these different big time people. And here we are like sneaking this stuff. And they actually were psyched. Like, the ad agency saw the potential in the company and said, hey, you know, we'll help you guys out to do this. And they gave me a little bit of money, and I used some of it to like put into the company and like make more boards and make more things happen. But where things kind of went downhill was like, we just got too psyched. Like, Taji was there making all these different types of videos for them and working on client stuff. And then I had the idea like, hey, like, I heard they have a BMW.
Oh, fuck.
You know?
I
And that was
remember
like the first really big mistake because BMW was like one of their clients. Like that's their big thing. And man, we somehow got the BMW and like there was a, you know, BMW there for the employees, like the business could use it for business stuff. So they gave us permission and I took the BMW with this dude, Sean Powers. He's like a skater for Palace. Big shouts out to Espy. He's pretty much just a rad dude overall. But we took the car to Woodward Skate Camp and we basically were trying to pitch Woodward as a client at the time, or that's what we told the agency. But the reality was like we just wanted to go on a skate trip in this BMW. So like we took the car, we like blasted it out. We're driving it all through the mountains in Pennsylvania. We're doing all this crazy shit. And next thing you know, like we bring the car back and I get called in from the heads at the ad agency and they're like, "Hey, you know, we got to talk to you. Like there's a problem with the car." And I'm like, "Well, like what's the problem, you know?" And they're like, "We found cocaine in the back seat." And I'm like, it's not from me.
3 pounds.
Like, yeah. I'm like, what do you mean we found cocaine in the backseat? Like, it's not for me. And I was pretty sure, like, Sean can't afford it, you know? Like, so we couldn't figure out what it was from. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. And then everything else started to come to light that we were, like, billing the company for all of the, like, stickers that we were making. And, like, you know, we were using all these resources on the side and, like, coming in and, like, making video stuff and, like, I didn't even have a real computer, so I was just using the computer at work. And then when they brought me in to let me go, I like went to go get the computer with all my files, and they're like, "Sorry, like, no, that's like our property now." And it was like
they took all your ideas from that too. You see the same sort of editing in the next
dude,
like ad
I was
campaign.
so
You're like,
bummed.
what the
I couldn't believe it, man. But they were great people, and I enjoyed working there. And I just realized like maybe the advertising world wasn't for me. You know, sometimes
dude, but you fucking went out like a champ, man. You went from like intern level, and then all of a sudden you like swindled your way into like renting out the company car, and then getting popped with a pound of cocaine. Like, who fucking does that? That's like
really what you needed was a higher position. They would have said, "Oh, we found cocaine." Yeah, that's his. He's the chief creative officer. That's okay.
Like,
that's what he does.
All of a sudden you would have been like moved right up to a creative director, and you'd have been good.
Yeah,
you know? Like I had never seen like Mad Men.
I was trying to close the deal, man.
Yeah, I was trying to get him to sign.
Yeah.
It was a sign-in. No, but it was funny. You know, it was like you get to see a different world because they always say that the best artists are all trapped in ad agencies. And I didn't understand what they meant by that. And like there's people that are so talented that work at these places and they're like photo correcting. They're like working on stuff that's just
bullshit.
It's like being the dishwasher at a restaurant in an ad agency. But the difference is it's like you make so much money at those places.
Oh yeah.
It's like the stepchild of capitalism.
Yeah.
It's like
with a creative title to it.
Yeah, like what is a client services person? Like, you know, they just gave me this title and it's like, well, really it's whatever they want you to be.
Yeah,
you
bitch
know?
work.
Yeah, like it's hard to pitch somebody, hey, you should put all this money into doing an app that like people are just going to try and find the X to click out of and you're going to get 60,000 eyes on the screen. But the reality is if you get $2,000 and have a bunch of kids put stickers all over New York City, well, guess what? In 3 months, you get 60 million real eyes on real life shit of your logo. And then, you know, people don't forget that. Like when you're on an app, you're trying to click out as fast as you can when that shit pops up. Nobody looks at that stuff.
Yeah, not so much. Not so much.
But yeah, that was an interesting time for sure.
But were you weren't you working on Samurai while you were over there, or the beginnings of Samurai at the time, or what were you working on?
Yeah, I had just started Samurai before I went into the ad agency, and then I would give out like little hats and shirts and stuff to the people working there, and they saw that there was like quality in it, and you know, eventually they saw that we were serious about it and wanted to do something fun with it. And they gave us a lot of freedom with it. And it's just, I wish I could have held on to it for a while because I like the money. But, you know, a lot of things happen for a reason and wouldn't be where I'm at now if I hadn't lost that job.
Did you put Samurai up, is it launched yet or is it coming up pretty soon?
Yeah, we have Samurai now that Theories of Atlantis put it up on their web store. It's kind of like a full-on thing that we're working on.
Okay,
and
so that's where we can buy the merch.
yeah, you can buy the merch at theoriesofatlantis.com
Okay.
on their web store, and you can also buy it direct from samurai.newyork.com.
Okay, awesome. Hell yeah.
A big
You
hit.
get mine like baby size, man. Like,
Oh, for sure.
I'm waiting on all because I love all the shit that you've been coming out with, but it's like all like extra larges, and I'm like, dude, I'm fucking swimming in this shit. I look
Nah,
like a
definitely.
12-year-old boy.
I'd love to hook you up with some stuff. I have the what's it called? The Insecurity jacket has been doing pretty good.
Oh yeah, I fucking love that. It reminds me of that South Park episode with Insecurity.
No, I don't know. I didn't see the jacket either.
It's like a
so
security
cool.
jacket.
Yeah.
It says Insecurity on the back, but it's like the
Oh,
same
nice.
font.
Cool,
And so
cool.
it's kind of like a guy that wears pink. Like you have to be pretty tough to pull that off. Like a guy's got an Insecurity jacket, you're like, oh, I'm not messing with that dude. You know, it's like one of those things. But they just told me over at Shut that the girl, Bruce Willis's daughter, just bought one. So that was like a big deal.
Oh, ill.
You know, like went out on their own to like go and purchase this thing. So that was like a kind of ego booster for all of us over at Samurai. We're like, all right, we're making stuff that people like that one and the Surfs Down shirt. Like, you know, it's not always about the money. It's like you have these things in your head and you want to make them a reality. And then when you see them and somebody else wears it and you see them wearing it, you're psyched. Because you get that sort of thing where you're all in the studio together and you think it's rad, but you don't really know till you see somebody else rocking it that you're like, yeah, it's sick.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, totally. So like, I also have to open up the dialogue with like all this art and like creative stuff. I'm sure like you are all about some fucking music. So like, what would you say is like your top 5?
I was born in 1981, so when I really got into music, I'd say my top two right away is just Wu-Tang and the Beatles.
All right.
Right there. They're kind of like the Beatles is the white and the Wu-Tang is like the black. It's like the both versions of the Beatles, essentially, in those two different genres. And then like down from that, I like, you know, Fleetwood Mac. I like some stuff like that. I like a little bit of classical music too. It just depends like what you're in the mood for, essentially. But really, this last couple months, my favorite's just been reggae music. Rastaman, Babylon Bill up on the 1-9. Hear me now, don't be smoking them on the river, ja. Like, you know, it's just it's always like a positive kind of sound.
Yeah, it's a great vibe. So you've been fucking with some Barrington Levy?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, there's just something about reggae music that like, you know, sometimes you put on Wu-Tang and you just get too psyched. You're like, oh, Shaolin, I'm fucking wah! You're ready to go skate. It's like dojo music.
Yeah, yeah.
But you put on reggae, like, you know,
hypnotized.
It's good for anybody. You could have a dude that's like a super conservative guy that hates a lot of things, and you put on some reggae, and he's like, "Oh, this is chill." You know, it's like, or you could be with a girl and you put on reggae, and it's like always kind of the perfect music for
That's
whoever
true.
you're around. It's like neutral. I think reggae is kind of like the Switzerland of music.
Yeah, but I feel like I do run into some people that go like, I just don't like reggae. I'm like, did you just
See,
tell
I
me
was
you love
like-
Hitler?
I was like that, but then I got into dub reggae, which is just like you just take out the vocals and put more reverb on it. It's like usually the B side of a lot of the reggae.
Yeah.
That was my in. That was my first like.
I like reggae when it was like kind of vibing more into like the rock steady style. I like rock steady a lot. Like I'm really into it. But for the Wu-Tang thing, man, like I think you're probably like one of the people I know that probably has like the most amount of Wu-Tang quotes I know.
No, I mean they were like that was like for skateboarders. I heard somebody say the other day they were like, yo, skateboarders are like the Republicans of music. Like they will not listen to any hip hop past Liquid Swords, and it's like so true. Like you put on music nowadays where it's like auto tuned and everybody sounds like a lizard, and they got like, you know, the lyrics are like, I've been on more women than Lululemon. You know, it's like, dude, come on, like you could do better than that. You know what I'm saying? It's like.
Yeah.
And we're used to stuff where it's like CIA gathering intelligence, your living is irrelevant. Watch out for the pink elephants. They're out to pick a president to represent something more budgeted than a deficit. It's hard to understand how we coming like the president. Like that's the type of stuff that Wu-Tang brought, where it was like dudes could just freestyle. There was like a whole almost a martial arts to the music.
Which also totally ties into skateboarding too. With like, I noticed that you've been doing a little bit more with the martial arts, and then also like you've been fucking with the yoga vibe a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my best friend Scotty Schwartz. His name's Yancey Scott Schwartz. You can find him on Instagram at Yancey Scott Schwartz. He essentially was a kid that was in the movie Kids. He played Darcy's brother, and when they have that shot up in the movie, it's like the kid hanging out the window.
Yeah, I can see him now.
Yeah, he's like, hey, yo, where's Darcy? And he's like, Darcy! That's Scotty Schwartz.
He's eating an apple, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so Scotty, he's my best friend, like I would say, just across the board. It's kind of like a Barton Millhouse thing. And so his wife is my sister, my girlfriend's sister. And so we're like there, like we really are like brothers. But Scotty, essentially, he got into yoga, and I was going first, and I told him, like, dude, you got to go to these yoga classes. It's crazy. You feel so much better, and there's nothing AEO about it. You're surrounded by like 40 girls, and they're all in yoga pants. Like, what more could you want? You know what I'm saying? And that was years ago, before I really understood like what it was about. And Scotty got into it. He never wanted to go. And then now here we are, almost 10 years later, he's like a complete yoga master. And that's what he does. He teaches yoga and skateboards, and he's all into like the spirituality of it. But like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I think I just met him today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was dope. Like I liked his vibe. I was like, oh man, I could totally see myself going and do yoga with this dude.
Yeah, yoga is one of those things. It's a little tough for a very masculine sort of personality to get into, because there's just.
But it's so beneficial for men.
It helped me quit smoking. I know that, and like it got me. I wouldn't have ever met my girl if I hadn't went to those classes.
Yeah, but I mean, you even did like some shit with like the Barry Lohan thing with the yoga mats for a minute.
Yeah, like my whole thing was like we made a couple of stuff on the side for that, like with the Barry Lohan stuff, and a lot of people at the yoga place were hyped on it, so made some shirts for the girls and some yoga mats and things like that. And it's just one of those things where like I remember Mark Gonzalez, he's like a very famous skater, artist guy. And just somebody that, like, if you're a skater, you look up to him. He's like just one of those characters.
Legend. Yeah, he's a legend all the way, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, he was just one of those personalities that you're drawn to. Like, I guess you could compare him to, like, a Robin Williams type of character, R.I.P., but, like...
He's totally like a spirit animal.
Yeah, like...
Yeah, he really is.
Like one of those people that, like, they could be walking down the street and people are just gravitated to their personality. And
he's been inspiring
are.
to me even as a non-skater.
Yeah, like there's just something about him. Like it's like a Willy Wonka type effect. And Gans, he told me once, he goes, yeah, skateboarding is like the rolling spear. Like if you had it as like a kung fu technique. And that was the way he described it, was like the rolling spear technique. And I asked him, I was like, Gans, you ever like, I didn't say Gans, but I was like, Mark, do you ever do like yoga or anything? And he's like, nah, man. Like once you start stretching, like that's it. You got to do it for the rest of your life. And so like you'd literally see him like instead of warming up, he would just take a couple slams and then be like, good. And that's the only downfall I think of yoga kind of stuff, is that like if you don't do it, you feel like crap and then you get injured. So yeah, you got to like kind of almost keep with it, because you lose your flexibility, and
no
then
way.
It's a lot. It's always going to be beneficial.
It's always going to be more beneficial than not.
Than not.
Like I feel like you're not going to come out less flexible from like yoga from when you didn't even do it at all. For example, like if you didn't even start at all, like I don't see how it could get worse on not being flexible.
Oh yeah, it's always going to help.
It's always going to help. Like if anything.
Like, I mean, I've seen girls go into it that before they started doing it, they like really looked past their age and were not happy and were like super stressed out. And then they get into this yoga stuff, and then a year down the line, they look younger than they did 5 years before, and they're more in shape and they're happier. So I think there's definitely some like mental health benefits.
Yeah, but I like whenever you mentioned it as a skateboarder doing it, like it made so much sense once you put it out there. I was like, whoa, that actually makes a whole lot of sense for skateboarders to start taking yoga, not just only for the babes, but like,
oh yeah, you end up seeing a lot of the dudes there, like Paul Rodriguez does yoga. What's his name? PJ Ladd. He's like one of the kind of more ninja type dudes as far as like technical skateboarding goes.
Yeah.
And those dudes, they go hard with it. Like Scotty was telling me he saw PJ Ladd in a Kundalini class, which is like basically a heavy breathing and like
yeah.
meditation
And
class.
rotating, you rotate a lot.
Yeah, it almost, if you didn't know what it was, you're like, yo, this is crazy. This is like straight 730, that kind of stuff. But this last winter, I found something that I thought was like, that I could really get into, and I enjoyed it. It was this Shaolin Kung Fu over.
Oh, yeah.
This was like the first.
On Center Street?
It's on Broadway. Is the first monk to ever defect from China, and his name's Sifu Shi Yan Ming, and he teaches at the USA Shaolin Temple, and he does classes. It was like a couple $100 to get the membership and start taking them. And I took a couple classes this winter, and even after skateboarding for like 24 years, it was like, this shit kicked my ass. Like yoga, all that stuff, that's cool. But like the Shaolin Kung Fu classes with this Sifu Shi Yan Ming, it was like, I couldn't handle it. It was like, dude, 2 hours into
intense,
it.
Yeah.
I mean, man.
Shaolin. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, that's where that whole like half praying stance comes from and everything. That's a pretty hardcore origin for that.
Yeah.
Dude, that story about the monk like chopping off his arm for the honor of his master, and that's where that whole prayer stance comes from. So yeah, Shaolin is fucking hardcore. Like
yeah, all that stuff. It's like so deep. Like, and what drew me to it was like you said, like the Wu-Tang stuff. Like this is the same Sifu that he's even on some of the Wu-Tang albums talking. He's the one that trained the RZA, and he trained all these different members of the Wu-Tang Clan at that dojo, basically at that temple. And it's just, even with the samurai stuff, you know, I always make all funny stuff with samurai and this and that, but like what got me into that was reading the Hagakure. It was like this book. It was the moral code of the samurai, and it all kind of tied back into this Asian philosophy, where it was like there's certain quotes in that one, there's others in like the Book of the Five Rings, where it's like it's deep. It talks about things like the sword being a link between the ways of heaven. Like something that is a killing instrument is a bad omen because it's essentially against the ways of heaven. It's something that kills. But if that sword is used to kill one evil man that would keep it from killing 20 people or thousands of people, then it becomes an instrument of heaven.
Yeah.
But see, if you don't know the science of how that works, that same sword could end up killing you when you try to use it. And it makes me think about like how military works these days. Like all this stuff you have going on in the world. You got this ISIS thing happening in Iraq. And it's like, it's always bad to kill somebody. But if the person you kill is going to be dead and that's going to save thousands of people's lives, then that's the kind of way of the samurai. Like you have to take it into consideration. That's sort of the art of war, essentially.
No, true story.
And that's a hard thing. Like whether you're for the death penalty or this and that or whatever, it's like if you can save 1,000 people by killing one person, then that same gun is an instrument of heaven. But if you use that gun to kill somebody just to bring evil, you're going to get killed as soon as that evil is done being brought. So like as soon as these people in Iraq feel like they've made their war known, then the real strike will come and they'll be gone. That evil will be taken care of.
Speaking of guns, can we talk about how Suge Knight got shot up at the VMA party?
This is news
Brown's
to me.
party?
I didn't hear about this till just before we got here.
Yeah, I mean, it just dropped, you know. But speaking of guns.
Like, what is that? Did he fly in on a crackhead time machine from the 1996 era? Like Suge Knight and guns in a nightclub?
He was at Chris Brown's like VMA party, and he was like up there with all these other celebrities. Like even fucking Richard Simmons was there. Okay. And then he was like walking out the club. There's a video of like Suge Knight walking out the club.
Did Richard Simmons shoot Suge Knight?
That would be awesome. No. But like he was like walking out. He takes 6 shots, and he's still walking. It like just straight out from like some fucking horror movie. I think I just mentioned earlier where it was like Jason. I was like,
yeah, he does sound like. Cause didn't he get shot like 3 years ago?
Yeah,
like that?
like in, what 90? What?
At some party in I don't know.
That's like the new selfie, I guess, is like getting shot. You know, if you want to get more followers, like you just get shot in a club.
Shotzi. But apparently they were like going after Chris Brown's. Like some rumors are saying they were going after Chris Brown, but I can't help but wonder. I was like, I feel like Suge Knight has way more fucking enemies.
No, but whoever that shooter was must have been drunk. They're like, yo, that's Chris Brown right
Yeah,
there.
how do you get that wrong? That's like shooting a bear.
And then he shot some other guy in the head, another bystander that was just like hanging out with him. This dude's in critical condition. And it's like way off.
Maybe the story got fucked up and he took 6 shots and then got shot.
No.
Okay.
If only.
I don't understand how that's possible. Like in the club and then the dude walks out. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, they didn't find the guy or they don't know where he is at.
Like what were they shooting? Blanks? Yeah, like this dude's just maybe
just
I don't
spraying.
know.
I guess they just spraying across and just hoping it just hits him at some point.
I mean, it's possible. 50 Cent got shot how many times? 9 times.
That was like some shit. Yeah, that only happened.
And he lived.
Yeah, I mean, like that was like one incident when he was a teenager.
And he was a young spry
guy.
Yeah. He was a teen dude. Suge Knight's had like a string of fucking crazy, shiesty, like violent issues going on where like either he was suspected of being part of like shooting Tupac and like
it was probably some guy from '93.
I love all those conspiracies.
And then hanging people out the window about to kill them and shit. And then like that woman that Suge Knight dated for a minute and then she went missing.
Oh my god!
I
didn't hear about that.
Whoa! Like her whole family can't find her at all. Like, and apparently she was gonna call Suge Knight out on some shit over some bullshit he was doing, and all of a sudden she just disappeared.
It's like
I swear, if he dies soon, he's gonna be like a ghost, like a demon. Like you're like, don't make me invoke Suge Knight.
Yeah, it's like fake your death records. Fake your death row.
That's what they should have called it.
Fake your death row records.
Yeah, say his name in the mirror 3 times and see if he pops up behind you.
Now we were talking about that the other day. How like easy it would be to fake your death. Like think about all these dudes, the conspiracies out there with like Biggie Smalls and Tupac and like just that whole kit.
Did you see that video pop up about like somebody like tripping out saying like, yo, Tupac is still alive. You see him at the BET Awards? Like, they try to get, like, this video still of this guy that had, like, his headband like Tupac. And they thought it was Tupac. I was like, get the fuck out of here.
It's just wild.
But Suge Knight swears that dude is just, like, out in Puerto Rico just having fucking martinis out there.
Hey, look,
if you had no way. I don't think there's any way that's possible. But what?
Here's what I'm curious about. If you had all the money in the world that you needed, right? And you'd been a celebrity. You've done everything. You've been with multiple girls, you've done tons of drugs, you've been in the best hotels, you've been all around the world, you've done everything you could do, and you hate that people come up to you all the time and you never have a moment to yourself, and it's always like, hey, you're such and such, what's going on? Hey, what's the final frontier? Is faking your death and like disappearing. And like if you really boiled it down, the 5 people that come into contact with a dead body, it's like the coroner, the medical examiner, you have the autopsy police officer, you have the 2 officers that arrive on the scene, and you have the funeral parlor and the people that bury the body. So if you had $6 million even, and you could pay each one of those people $1 million to go along with it, and you had one of those like Madame Tussauds wax figures. Have you ever seen a dead body in a casket? It looks like a wax figure.
It does.
Yeah.
It feels like a wax figure.
Yeah, it's
so
not
like
there.
If you had those 6 or 7 bases covered of all the people that identify, the morgue guy, like the people that do the autopsy, if you had them paid off, people will do a lot of crazy shit for money. And if you got $100 billion, what's $1 billion to you to be able to disappear and become a whole new person?
Yeah.
So I don't think really it's that impossible. And especially in a place like Hollywood where you got access to makeup people and artists that can totally transition what a person's face looks like and plastic surgery. It's not impossible to fake your death.
Like Saddam Hussein shit. Do you remember that when he had like 6 other dudes like had plastic surgery?
Oh yeah. Well, the brothers had that too, or they had like people, bodyguards around them. They look exactly like them.
Yeah, it's like a trip out. I mean, I don't like to believe.
The things that money buys.
Yeah, I don't like to believe in like conspiracies and that sort of stuff, because it's like the oldest one in the world is like the devil made me do it. Like people always like conspiracies so that they don't have to take responsibility for like their life is shitty. Like, oh, when I don't have any money, it's because I didn't work. It's not because the Illuminati's trying to hold me down.
Oh, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
Blaming it on the conspiracies, or just believing in conspiracies. I totally believe in the conspiracy theories. Like, I feel like that has more validity than the fucking shit that I see on the news.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
for sure. Because, like, I think it's just pretty much known information that whatever we see on the news is just paid by advertisers and nobody gives a shit and the government regulates it. So,
yeah,
who gives a shit?
I wish that was the case.
I'm going to
Cause
make up whatever story I need to because I know whatever story is being told to me is not the full one anyway, so whatever.
oh, for sure. But you see some of these websites and they're like, the graphic design is so bad on them that you're just like, yo, I can't take this serious. Like, who did this? Like a little kid? Like, you really want me to believe this?
I know that with some advertisements like on the subway where I'm like, how many people looked at this before they made it?
You have all this money to like get this message out about like
And
the
you pick
government's
Comic
trying to take
Sans.
your guns, and then you look at it and you're like, dude, you didn't have like an extra $50 to pay like a graphic designer to make this website look legit. Like it looks like a porn website. Its thing is
yeah.
like black and it's got
With a
like
black background.
bright green
Bright
writing.
green- oh, yeah, I
You
was
know,
about to say
it's
that.
Oh,
like
I know. Yeah.
wizard dragons and it's like the Illuminati's coming for your guns, you know, Obama, and you're just like,
A rotating
And they-
like
Oh, yeah.
eye.
Yeah.
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, you're like, this
Exactly.
sucks, dude. You know, it's like Beyonce giving like Jay-Z a high five, and you're just like, dude,
They have a
what
triangle.
is this?
That's like
you
the
high
know?
five.
The site that still has like the web ring.
Yeah.
Hey, we were talking about web rings.
Oh,
recently.
man.
The guest book. Please sign the guest book.
There's just stuff out there where it's just like, what?
Hey, this is a little off topic. What logo is that?
Oh, that's Cafe Grumpy. That was a job.
Okay, I've seen
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Do
I
you
love
know-
them. They're like the best.
Do you remember Onyx, the band Onyx?
Yeah,
The
it
group
looks
Onyx?
almost like that.
Yeah, it looks just like that.
It's like very similar. It's
Okay.
funny.
Sorry, I was
They
just
they bit Cafe Grumpy's logo.
okay.
No, I'm just kidding. They bit Onyx's logo.
Okay. Every time I see it, and I've seen that, and I'm like, who?
Oh,
What
speaking
is
of
that?
Onyx, they are also doing an anthology thing going on right now. by the
Oh
way.
man, I have to
Yeah.
confess, I didn't listen to anything after the first one, Back the Fuck Up, which I had as a kid.
They're gonna go over the past 20 years, pretty much. Like I listened to them coming out with that. That should be interesting. Onyx was fucking
Onyx
tough
news.
as fuck.
Oh yeah. they're-
Onyx and Wu-Tang, that track, what? That was the hardest.
Oh, that
fucking
was awesome.
Shit. Like,
Remember
so
that
fucking
Shaquille
hard.
O'Neal on one and stuff? There was so much back in the day.
Just the look on that dude's face in that video, like I was just like thinking, I was like, you know, like when I hear stories about like Drake being freaked out by Lil Wayne in the studio, I'm like, that's fucking bullshit. If like the dude from Onyx like gave me like the wrong look, I would probably piss myself.
And if it was that
That's a
one dude,
whole
he has a
different
cockeye,
game.
he could be giving you the wrong look and somebody else the wrong look.
Yeah, she'd take the cockeye, I bet.
Ew.
Wait, is that Sticky Fingers? I don't know who that is.
Hey, yo. No, but it's like one of those things. Like, that's pre-iPhone problems. Like, back
Yeah.
then, there's like, you know, you have AD and BC, like before Christ and AD.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, you got like before the iPhone and after the iPhone. Like, the world before the iPhone, you know, if you're walking through the park and you meet a girl and you're like, hey, what's up? Like, you want to kick it, you spit some game to them and try and get something going on. And that was what you had to do. Nowadays, if you walk up to a girl in a park and you're like, hey, what's up? Like, and boom, before you could even say anything else, you're like, I don't have any change. Like, leave me alone. You know, like you gotta like find them on Tinder and like all these different iPhone problem things where like back in the day, if there was a problem with rapper or music or something, it was like, it was a whole different world back then. You weren't going to see somebody on Instagram and at their name and I don't like this or that. It was like, that dude might get shot if he's in the wrong neighborhood.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it wasn't like even on the internet. People were not on the internet back then. It was just like different songs would come out and dudes would get heated about it and be like, man, this is like serious shit right here.
I mean,
It's
it's
a
give
lot
and
more
take though,
real.
because you lose that, but then you gain like the ability to have like reach. You know, there's kids in like somewhere that can just reach. Like, I mean, because
Oh,
I
yeah.
sort of lament the loss of like organic ways of finding out about things. But then, you know,
Yeah, there was so much. It seemed more magical then. Like now somebody can't be an okey doke and like tell you a crazy story and you'd be like, oh, that's cool. Like you just look it up at Google and you're like, that's a lie. That's not true. Like you're never going to get lost again.
But, yeah.
okay.
But but speaking of like sex and booty, sticky finger, all that good shit, let's like ask Billy some questions. We decided to make up a list, and You just have to answer bang or would not bang.
Oh shit! I didn't. Okay.
Well, let me just
Go ahead.
hypothetically say
Oh
that,
god.
like,
Oh god.
hypothetically, you know, this is like a warning or whatever. Like I got a girl. Like,
See, I was
right
thinking
now.
about that.
No,
I was
no,
thinking
no,
about that before the show.
You know what I'm saying?
This would be.
So this is just like a hypothetical bang or wouldn't bang.
Yeah, I mean, like,
You
there's
know,
no possible way that
If I was single,
these
you know,
these
The Bill-
situations would ever present itself to you while you're in a relationship. This is totally not
The
a
Barry-
challenging
the Barry
relationship. I
Lohan
love
persona.
your girlfriend. I think she's fucking rad.
oh yeah, well
So,
Barry
like, if
Lohan,
she's-
that's a whole different
So,
thing.
Jess, if you're listening
Okay.
to me, please don't
No.
be mad at me about this list. This is just a hypothetical list. But anyway, so let's start it off. Sarah Palin.
Bang.
Yeah? Okay. How about Monica Lewinsky?
History. Bang.
Really?
It's historic, man.
Okay, so
That's
you're
Bill
going,
Clinton.
but you're going for significance then. Like it's
You know,
just because you'd be able to say it.
nah. Well, just you know, hey man, that's like retard magic. There, you don't know what you're getting. There had to be a reason the president of the United States wanted to go there in the Oval Office. Like, talk about pimping, dude.
You're right. It's probably presidential caliber.
Yeah,
I don't know.
mean that's like
It's
definitely presidential.
Okay. What about Britney Spears now?
Yo,
At
bipolar.
this moment now.
Bipolar. Why not? Everybody deserves a second chance.
Dude, I just had a feeling that you were just going to end up trying to bang everybody on this list.
Well, yeah. Okay. So,
God damn it.
I have another one that's sort
It's
of
hypothetical, so I could say
Even-
yes,
even
but not
hypothetical-
really. You
but
know what I
like,
mean?
if it actually came down to it and she just fucking dropped her panties and just went like, yo, stick it in.
Not see, but I was afraid you answer like answer like this also just because, you know, it's because they have significance. But half of these I would too, just because you'd be like, hey, I just
Well,
I
it's
just met
like,
Sarah
you know,
Palin
would
last
But in
you-
night.
reality,
would you make out with Barbara Walters?
Yes.
You probably would, because that would be like a story to tell your grandchildren about. Like, hey,
Yeah.
one time at this party at like the White House
No.
press conference thing, I like made out with Barbara Walters. It was sick.
in the women's bathroom.
Like, that's
No.
funny. You
Oh,
know,
God,
sometimes
no.
you do things because it's like comical. Like, you might not even really want to hook up with somebody
so
like
just,
that.
Just
but-
out of the novelty alone, you would probably bang most all like female celebrities that are out there right now.
no,
Yeah.
no,
Lil Kim.
nah.
Okay.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't. You know what? Most of these ones on the list, I wouldn't bang, but some of them I would.
Well, God damn it, answer it honestly. Not out of like, you know, the novelty of it.
Okay.
So like, then who? Then who would you say would probably be on the questionable bang list? Like, if it really came down to it, and you
Cyndi
were single.
Lauper. I
Cyndi
don't know
Lauper
about
is
that.
questionable, really?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's just like I used to have a girlfriend that was a redhead, and I don't think I could do it anymore.
Ah, okay.
She was
okay.
rad, but it was like, I don't know. It's like, nah, I can never go back there.
Scorned by a ginger.
Scorn. The
Scorn.
ginger scorned me.
God. Well, who do you got on your list?
What is that of people who?
Yeah, for Billy. Anybody?
Well, Lil Kim was one. Mariah Carey, another one. These are people who had like a past. Like when I think of them, I think of an image from 10 years ago. I'm not thinking about right now, which then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't think I'd be down with that.
Like
Ye-
pre-fame.
Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of hard because as like a relatively normal dude and that skateboards and stuff, like, you know, you have had your share of like, you know, messing around with chicks, and you'd be like, whoa, Mariah Carey, like, that's dope. Like, she's still dope. That's one of those girls, she's always going to be dope.
Yeah.
Nah.
I
Like
mean, well,
J-Lo.
it just sort of in what
J-Lo will
she's.
always be dope.
I agree with that a little more than
maybe
that.
I just have like a little bit more integrity because like to me like people like Mariah Carey is just a fucking cunt. I'm sorry. Like if you're a fucking Mariah Carey fan, she's a fucking cunt. I'm
But
sorry.
the thing is like,
I'm gonna at her.
there's
Say
like,
that.
you
Gisela
know,
says Mariah Carey's a
She's
cunt.
single now too. She's probably on Twitter right now.
Yeah, because
creeping.
Nick Cannon
That's
couldn't
hot.
stand her shit anymore. Like he just couldn't stand.
Well,
her
Nick,
shit.
whatever his
Did
name
you
was.
see that picture of him like in the little bunny mask while he was sitting next to her and their kids? And
No,
the absolute look
I didn't
of
know
misery.
I didn't know they had a kid.
Misery.
I didn't know they had kids.
Misery with the bunny ears.
Isn't he like 21? No, he's not. He's like 20.
He's
I don't know
in his
how old he
40s.
is.
well, it's like a
No,
weird, it's,
him.
Huh?
Nick Cannon.
Yeah, he's in his 40s.
No, he's not.
Yeah, he is.
Are you serious?
yo, black
Google-
don't crack, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Google
That's
that
how it
shit.
is.
He's like at least like 45.
Yo, you see some of these dudes, like some of the dudes in the Wu-Tang, they still look like when their first videos came out on MTV. It's like a whole different thing.
Man, that's really wild because he looks really young. I was making a joke about that. I thought he was really like younger than me.
Look at Ted Nugent. That dude's like 35. He looks awful. Jesus, do the opposite of whatever that guy's doing if you want to
And
like.
Keith Richards, for that matter.
You know what? Keith Richards is killing it. Just
because of who he is.
Man,
that dude's face melted. I'm sorry.
Man, I know some guys like Harry Jumanji. This dude is like a famous skateboarder from like the Christian Hosoi days. He's pushing 50, got a 6-pack, looks like Bruce Lee. The dude has smoked crack for 20 years, on and off, back and forth to like the jail, 1 year off, 1 year on type of thing. And he looks better than everybody I know that's his age. Dude pulls the filters out of his cigarettes, smokes. It's like this weird anomaly. So it's like a very strange thing. Some people just have genes where they're like...
my dad, dude. He's like the guy that just doesn't smoke the filters on his cigarettes, and he still gets hit on by women my age.
Yeah, it's like some people...
Man, so
I don't know what it is.
You got that too then. You got the... you're not going to age. You probably have that in your genes too.
I think it's just Viking spirit, man. That's just what it is.
Just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, no fucks given.
That's it.
On every day.
Just do you. That was what I learned from Harold Hunter. He would always say, yo, kid, you're not crazy. Yo, just do you. Fresh out the box. And like, the dude just had that mentality of like, just do you. Be yourself. Like, that's all you needed to do.
True.
Like my grandma, she's 90-something years old, smokes cigarettes. She's just doing her. That's her thing. And some people it works for, some people it doesn't.
Speaking of do you, I would like to open up into the Higher Learning Channel helpline. We got some questions on that. I wanted to go ahead and share this question from one of my Twitter followers, Tim. He wanted to ask, especially with recent events that happened, he was saying, what is the best way to get over someone? And then the follow-up question is, how can you stop overthinking this?
Find a new someone. If you got a phone and you're desperate, you got Tinder. Just always swipe to the right. Something will come out of it.
You're the worst influence.
See, I feel so well. I mean,
that's like the classic saying is just like to get over someone, you got to get under someone.
I tried. I tried.
Heard that.
What?
I tried
good.
every way possible to get over a girl that I loved, and the only thing that worked was months later making love to somebody.
Just like time and banging someone else. That's pretty much your answer. Then how does he stop from overthinking? What would you say?
My advice would be to first just get. Well, I'm only speaking from experience on this too. Is just getting rid of physical things that are in your apartment, in your place that still have that are theirs in some way. Something that's going to set you off, a trigger that's going to set you off thinking about it, thinking about them, thinking about going back, thinking about doing this or that.
So take away all objects.
Oh, I don't know.
Let's block away social media.
In terms of overthinking though, that's just you. You just got to control the focus of your mind.
I personally always like to take my friends in more of a spiritual direction. I always recommend things like, practice a little bit more Reiki, whatever, or yoga, you like to do. I think yoga definitely chills you the fuck out.
Yeah,
I mean, it gives you a high.
You could do some loga. You should do some downward laying log and upward laying low. That'll help you. You ain't gonna be thinking about nothing when your girl's legs are on your head and your face is in between those legs. There ain't much else you could be thinking about. A nuclear bomb could be going off and you're in a great position. You're like, yo, I'm coming back. This is where I came from.
You're right. You lose all the.
Yeah, it's
stress.
It's like the rebirth. When those legs hit your ears, boy, nothing matters. Oh, Al Qaeda, fuck that shit. I'm about to hit this.
But if that's not on availability, I also like to recommend a good book. So, what would you say is a good, inspiring book when you can't get the puss?
50 Shades of Grey.
Gosh, that's the lamest shit ever, dude.
But see, that's
the lamest shit
I think
ever.
that's different with everybody because you could be in that situation and want to hear about relationship type shit, or you can be in that relationship and be like, I don't want to hear about anybody in any sort of relationship whatsoever. I want to read a biography about some dude that never got in a relationship ever.
Read the Bible.
In their life.
There's a lot of dudes that never got in relationships from that book.
Which
yeah.
one?
Read the Bible.
Oh, God. I mean, there's a lot of incest in there. That's for sure.
There's a lot of celibacy too.
Celibacy, incest,
a lot of great lessons.
There's seriously that's pretty raw book. There's some
the
crazy
Bible,
ass stories.
The Bible's special. That's it. That's like one of those books, like the Quran or the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita. They're all different spiritual sort of guide references for the humans.
That should never be taken literally. that should never be taken literally.
Well, you got to pick and choose.
Yeah, it's basic instructions before leaving Earth.
But I'm just saying, like, it's just definitely like the best book ever written. I wouldn't say that it was like something that would be like literal. I think there's a lot of really great like poetry in there. Like I think like the Book of Psalms was like one of my
and
favorites.
it's the story of it's the story of rebellion too, about
Fuck the government.
He was getting persecuted. He got crucified.
He got his ass kicked, and he was just like, "Yo, my dad's gonna fuck all you guys up. Time coming. Fuck all you guys. I'm out of here. And then I'm gonna come back from the dead."
Resurrected. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of cool, stuff out there. Like if you're trying to get your mind off a girl, like you could always turn to like spiritual books or self-help books, or you could become a Hare Krishna because you're probably not going to get any ass that way.
Oh my God! Don't do that. Don't become a Hare Krishna. Please don't.
They have great food. I go eat at the Hare Krishna place all the time.
Subscribe to that shit and just start shaving your head and like leaving the place. That happened to one of my friend's girlfriends. He was dating this girl for like 3 months, right? She's joined up to the Hare Krishna thing. She just fucking disappeared off the face of the earth. Like, just stopped talking to him and everything.
She got happy.
She got happy and left.
She was a Hare Krishna.
She got
That's what we called them back in Gainesville, my hometown. They have all sorts of Hare Krishnas. That's like the
Were there actually Hare Krishnas there?
There was some hot chicks that were Hare Krishnas, and we used to call them Hare Krishnas.
Did they rock the same hairstyle too?
No, the guys did. But man, my friends that were skater dudes, they used to go buy weed from the Hare Krishnas out in the redneck area out in Alachua. And like, dude, they would hook up with some of those girls. They would say they had naked parties and run around in the fields, take mushrooms, all sorts of stuff. So like, you always got to wonder sometimes with these religion things, it's like they get so left alone that people are like, I can do anything. It's like a funny thing. They were like hot Krishna girls, and that's what they called them. There's a Hare Krishna. Wow. They had the best food though.
So
if you like
Tim,
Indian
if you're
food,
listening, Hare Krishna seems like your best bet right now.
And just removing every physical piece of that person from your visual life.
My
try
advice,
Tinder. Swipe right.
You say Tinder, like me, I say definitely like a book. Like one of my favorite books was like A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Like to me, I think that's way better than like A Power of Now. I think that would definitely get your mind off of things.
Charles Bukowski's Women got me on.
Dope one.
That's what got me on him. But I was going through a breakup, and I was like, okay. I mean,
Women's
part of it was that all of his relationships failed in a lot of ways. So that was part of what got me to be like, that was fun to read at the time, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot to resonate with in something like that. Even as a woman, I could associate with women.
You could read Emily Post's Essential Guide to Manners and Etiquette for Men. That'll like take your mind off that stuff.
Oh,
maybe help you get a new girl afterwards.
I hadn't even heard about that book. What is that about?
My old girlfriend, she put me onto it a long time ago, and it was like, it made me realize that growing up in America, it doesn't matter if you get your doctorate. You don't have to take a manners and etiquette class your whole life. So that's the big divider. It's like you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have any manners, you can't unlock certain doors. And that was what that book taught me, that manners are essentially, your keys to opening doors for other people. Like you basically use manners to put people before yourself. And that's something we're not really taught in this country. It was like, get as much money as you can, and then you could do whatever you want. But you could have all the money in the world, you're not going to meet the Queen of England. But you could be a broke artist with good manners and be welcomed into the palace.
I could definitely attest to that. Yeah, that's for sure. Because I've definitely been a broke artist, like being in some multi-billionaire's house and just chilling, just going like, yo, I'm looking at like crazy shit coming from like the Vatican Library of some shit that I would never be able to enter. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
the things that you could just get into, just being broke as fuck.
You see all sorts of stuff like that. I mean, that's really one of the things that I feel like is missing. Because if you sort of replaced manners and etiquette with a lot of this like religion and politics talk that people do, it's like we're all just people. People want to see their kids happy and smiling. And if they use manners and etiquette rather than religion and politics, you'd have a lot more peace.
A lot more peace, a lot more rapport. Like less of the feeling of the separation that we're having between rich and poor.
Yeah, I mean,
because I feel like there's a huge feeling of that. Like I feel like it's turning into like this us versus them, where we hate the rich or like whatever.
Oh yeah, that's a deep subject. I'm actually scared about it. in the future?
I'm scared. I'm scared.
I can't be scared because I feel like, we all beat 60 million sperm cells to be here. So we kind of won this like universal lottery where it's like that blows away any kind of money that you could ever won because now you have access to the whole world, which is like such a special thing. And like dealing with art and being an art handler myself, I see billionaires' houses. I see things that they have. And I realize that like people are people regardless. And like things like art that a human can make is what makes it valuable, that there's this one piece that in the world exists and that one person made it. And now all of a sudden this painting's worth $100 million. Like a Jackson Pollock #5, that's $100 million painting.
But it's kind of sad though, because when you give it that money, you attach that certain energy to it, and so then people are looking at it in a different way now.
But without the creator, the person that created that, it wouldn't have that value. I mean,
Okay,
I know it's
true,
weird
true.
that I follow like 50 Cent on the Instagram, like just because it's not like my music taste
Does he post?
necessarily.
Does he post stuff like it's from
Yeah,
his voice?
he had
like it's
something
him?
on it the other day that I really jived with. He's like, I could buy a Bentley, I could buy all these different cars and all these different things, but I wouldn't have the power for any of this stuff without the music. And it's like one of the first times you hear somebody as raw as that say, hey, I'm a musician. Like, that's what got me here. The power of music as an art form.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gave him the ability to buy all this stuff and have all this power and do all these things. And people forget, it's not the gold chain that you rock. It's not, the car that you drive. Any rich dude can buy a Ferrari and another rich dude can buy a Ferrari, but they can't create the art form of music or poetry or painting, like comedy, all these different things. That's what makes the human special, that money can't buy those things.
Did you see that challenge he did for Floyd Mayweather? He
Yeah.
challenged him to read a full page on Harry Potter, and then Floyd responded back with a check. Did you see that? And then I think they're just going back and forth with each other right now.
I saw some fake responses, a Twitter response I thought was real for like a day. So I'm all like, fuck, I don't even believe what's going on right now. I'm gonna wait till I can hear, I can read a few back. I got what is it? Not catfish. I got fooled by this.
catfish.
I got fooled by this.
Can you
fake-
believe that
not
even
catfish.
exists? Can you believe that even exists?
Yo,
That's
I've
another
seen-
thing.
I've
That's
seen
after
people use-
iPhone.
That's
That's
digital
after
danger
iPhone.
right there.
I've seen people use my picture as their profile picture
Oh,
on
man.
Facebook. They use my
I
picture
believe
as a
that.
catfish.
Yo.
It's so fucking creepy. I
You
was
don't really look like a catfish, though.
Get it? What?
How does that work?
So I'm not worthy
I
to be
don't know what.
catfish?
You know what it was? Did catfish come from like that was
The
the
movie
screen name?
Catfish.
Oh shit!
No, the
you're
movie
right.
I never
Catfish.
understood
Remember,
that.
it was like
I
this
didn't see
big
it.
thing.
What's
It was a
next?
big thing. Okay, and where this
Selfie
guy,
suicides?
the guy that was talking to this girl online for years, and she would send all these different pictures, and then he was like, she always seems to avoid me whenever we try to meet up and everything, and this is where she says she wants to live, and she comes up with all these excuses all the time. So he decided to try to surprise her, and then when he goes out to her property, she ain't there. It's this other strange woman, this fat chick with glasses, super awkward. And then more the plot thickens in the movie, he realizes it was this strange woman and not this model chick.
Oh, wow.
And that's where it started from. And then
I gotta watch it now.
Now it's a TV show where it's this constant.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a TV show now where it's a constant thing where people are constantly getting catfished.
Damn, that's
And
a
that's where
horrible
that-
thing to
yeah.
call a woman.
Yeah,
Yo, that girl's a catfish. That
yeah,
sucks.
it's she's not what
Whiskers.
she says she is. She's using
That's a-
someone else's profile pictures and claiming it as
Oh,
her
man,
own.
that's
So she
awful.
could go ahead and masturbate over the computer thinking that, you just might bang her.
Oh, man.
Just
What's-
maybe.
What's the future hold for these situations? I don't know, but pretty crazy.
It's a dangerous
Craze
world out
rules
there.
everything around me.
And this is why I just don't do online dating,
good.
man.
Cream. What's up with hip hop? It used to be highly intelligent people high on poetry, and now it's a whole different thing. Now it's
Well, now the
this,
ignorant shit is like
what's going
the
on?
fun
There's
shit.
some
It's
good
the-
stuff out there
No,
now.
there's definitely some good stuff. It's definitely on more of an indie level. I still say Troy Ave is awesome, even though he's kind of debatable. He is that young 50 Cent type of vibe going on, especially since you like to follow 50 Cent.
I like what the Odd Future guys did. The music industry didn't want them at first, and they just did it themselves. And then it was so rad that they were like, "We got to have these guys. We need them more than they need us."
But yeah, that wraps up our show. We are the Higher Learning Channel, filling in for Comic Book Rockstar Radio. Thank you again, Kurt Christensen, for letting us on.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Hey, thank you, Billy Rohan, for coming in.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It was well good. Yeah. See you next time.
And again, find us on higherlearningchannel.com. You can find me as Ginzilla on Twitter.
You can find me as SIGHR_ on Twitter.
You can find me over at William Rohan on Instagram. Foo or like whatever. It was this like fun thing to do with my friends. And yeah, now I'm here in New York and been here for about 14 years. Met all sorts of wild people. And there's a lot going on here. It's a crazy city.
I definitely know you're full of like a lot of those like epic stories. So like when it comes to like whenever you worked with Zoo York, I realized that it had a lot to do with like Greg Chapman, and I know that it might open up to something that you are doing with Samurai right now.
Yeah, like I started a company called Samurai a few years ago, and Chapman Skateboards is the manufacturer for Samurai, and essentially Theories of Atlantis is a distribution company that does all sorts of stuff with Polar and Magenta, Hops, Isle, all these great brands. And it's like a big group of friends. And it was big for us at Samurai that they just put it up on their web store. So you could check out some of the Samurai gear we're working with those guys with at theoriesofatlantis.com. And there's all sorts of cool content up there and that sort of stuff. But like Greg Chapman, he's one of those guys here in New York City that's been manufacturing boards for Zoo York for the last, I want to say, 20 years or so.
Yeah, that's totally awesome.
Is the Illuminati stuff, is that just you? Is that just something you put together, or is multiple people like filming, putting it together? Is that?
Well, with the Illuminati stuff, Josh Stewart, I had given him a couple little clips a while back when we first did the first Illuminati, and he liked it, and he said,
Smoke weed every day.
Welcome to the Higher Learning Channel. I am filling in for Kurt Christensen from Comic Book Rockstar Radio. Thank you so much, Kurt, for giving me the opportunity to take over your show right now while you're over there at the VMAs. Today I have with me my co-host Matthew Sire. And,
hey, what's up, everybody?
And we also have a very special guest, Billy Rohan, pro skateboarder.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And you can find all of us, my Twitter ID, preferably. You can find it on Ginzilla. And how can we find you, Matt?
I'm SIGHR_.
And how about you, Billy? What's the best way to find you?
You can find me at Instagram at William Rohan.
William Rohan. All right. So tell us a little bit about your background, Billy, because like I definitely know you have like an extensive like thing with skateboarding from like Illuminati or like some of the features you've had through like Vice or Zoo York. So if you could delve in a little bit more about that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I came from a small town in Gainesville, Florida. It's like a little college place, about 5 miles in any direction is pretty much cow country. I got into skateboarding, and it ended up kind of taking me around the world through sponsorships and things like that, and ended up here in New York City skating for Zoo York back in 2003. And long story short, that was like kind of skateboarding was my passion. That's what I loved to do. It was kind of like my compass in myself. And it was just a fun thing to like go out there and like, I'm not like a graffiti guy, you know, like I never like had been up in that world, but I know so many guys that do paint, and it's all through skateboarding and those connections, because it's kind of one and the same. Like what I get out of skateboarding, some dude might get out of art. And I realized when I started painting myself that it's very similar. Like at first you can't do a kickflip. You try it and you try it and you try it.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you land it and you realize like you could do it. Same with art. At first it looks like crap, or to you it looks like crap. And then you keep trying a little, and all of a sudden it looks like a portrait of somebody. And it has that same sort of thing inside of like accomplishment.
Yeah,
you know?
I totally fuck with that a lot, because like one of the best things that I really liked about like the mid 90s and on was like the beginning of the do-it-yourself art movement that was going on in New York, and how like the lines between art, graffiti, and skateboarding was all like blurring, and everybody was kind of mingling together. And I noticed like some of my most favorite artists came out of that. So like when I noticed that you were doing this project, I got really super excited and almost a bit jealous of you on this. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool.
Nah, thanks. It was just one of those things where it hit, and like as soon as we did that first one, we approached Stanley's Pharmacy, and like I knew Jess was like a classical painter, Jess Blowers, and she's an amazing oil painter, but she hadn't really worked much with, because it was just like so depressing. Like New York City, the winter here was just the worst of all time.
Yeah, and last winter was really brutal too.
Oh my God, like you just like, Jesus, it's like
Oppressive.
hard. Yeah, it was just too much. And so I started painting a little bit, and then when I met this girl, I was like, man, you know, we should do some stuff. Like, why don't we paint a gate? Why don't we do something? And our friend Harif Guzman, that's like a pretty well-known artist, he did a roll gate right in our little neighborhood. We live in the Lower East Side, over off Clinton Street, Clinton and Henry area. So we call it the Bermuda Triangle. These guys, yeah,
Nice.
that's like, you get stuck down there. It's like this area of Chinatown. We always joke that like when it gets gentrified, people will call it China White. It'll be like the new Williamsburg, kind of, we'll see. But right now it's still more affordable than Brooklyn, so that's cool. You get to take the no train home. But basically, this guys from this store called Homie's Wonderland had Harif paint their roll gate, and it's right next to Frank's Chop Shop. And we saw it, we're like, man, it just made the whole area look so much better. And then we walked up to the neighbors that were next to that store, and we're like, hey, you know, it'd be awesome if we could paint your roll gate. And the guy was like, yeah, sure. You know, I'd much rather have that than just like regular like tags that you see on the roll gates and that sort of stuff. So he gave us a couple $100 to pay for the paint, and we painted the first little, you know, little Billy Rohan thing on there with Jessica Blauer. Say, hey, you know, if you could produce these for me, I'll run them on Theories of Atlantis. Like, I like the idea, the concept behind it, kind of poking fun at the whole Illuminati thing, like through skateboarding and comedy. And so, yeah, just basically got an old TRV 900 camera and would walk around the city when we were skating or whatever, just had the backpack with me with the camera, pull it out, film stuff that I'd see in the city. And I really liked the old style camera because you could get this zoom on it that you just can't get on a digital. And like you'd end up catching people doing stuff from 2 blocks away, where like New York City, you could be walking around and be like, damn, yo, this is like Crackhead Time Machine. Like, what the hell is this? You know, you never really know what you're going to see here. And just being out there with some sort of camera to get it, edit it up, put it to some Rastaman radio, and, you know, you're good. That was the Illuminati stuff that we were doing.
And how can we find that?
If you want to see in the Illuminati clips, you could just follow the Theories of Atlantis on YouTube. That's what they're all there. There's like 7 Illuminati clips up right now, and we have a couple more full-length ones coming out in the next couple weeks.
Oh, hell yeah. So that's what you got going on right now. On top of that, it seems like I noticed that there's something popped up about a 100 Gates project. So what's up with the 100 Gates?
Well, the 100 Gates project, essentially I started dating this girl that was an artist. And last winter, like I got into painting and doing some art myself.